I got to go.
Yeah, right there to talk.
Good evening. I call this public hearing regarding the challenge to the candidate petition of Stacy B. Smith to order. First order of business is we are here this evening to conduct a hearing on the challenge to the nominating petition of Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith to be a candidate for election to Knox County Commission District 9 on the August 1st, 2024 Knox County General Election ballot. And the first thing that we will do is I will ask the other election commissioners to identify themselves by stating their name and address, beginning with Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. Commissioner Eddie Smith, address 300 Main Street, room 229.
Robert Bowman, 300 Main Street, Suite 229, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Hannah Hopper, 300 Main Street, room 229.
Julie Gautreaux, 300 Main Street, room 229.
Adronicus Thomas, 300 Main Street, room 329.
Okay, thank you. Next thing that we will do is to identify and mark the various exhibits that will be used today into evidence. And we do have a court reporter here with us. In order, those things have been provided to each of the commissioners in their packets. Mr. Davis, you'll be giving those to the court reporter, correct? Okay. Exhibit A is a challenge to the candidate petition of Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith by Mr. Martin Ammons. This was received via hand delivery to the West Office of the Knox County Election Commission on May 8th, 2024, and the challenge document is dated May 2nd, 2024. This will be marked as Exhibit A. Next exhibit will be Exhibit B, which is a petition for candidacy, and it's a nominating petition. It's 4 pages, filed by Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith. It was filed with the Knox County Election Commission on December 13th, 2023. It will be marked as Exhibit B. Exhibit C is the notice of meeting, the timeline, and the agenda for the June 7th, 2024 candidate challenge hearing. All of these were sent on May 16th, 2024 to the election commissioners, as well as Mark Goins, the state coordinator of elections, along with the media, Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith, as well as Mr. Martin Ammons, and that will be marked Exhibit C. Exhibit D is a notice of additional evidence and 8 attachments which were sent by Mr. Martin Ammons to the Knox County Election Commission on May 20th, 2024, and proof of forwarding to Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith. Exhibit E is notice of further evidence for hearing sent by Mr. Martin Ammons to the Knox County Election Commission on May 20th, 2024, and proof of forwarding to Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith. Exhibit F is an inquiry by Mr. Martin Ammons and response to Mr. Ammons sent on May 22nd, 2024. Exhibit G will be a notice of supplementary evidence for hearing sent by Mr. Martin Ammons to the Knox County Election Commission on May 23rd, 2024, as well as proof of receipt and proof of forwarding to Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith. Exhibit H will be supplementary evidence sent to the Knox County Election Commission by Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith, as well as proof of receipt and proof of forwarding to Mr. Martin Ammons. And Exhibit I will be public notice of the June 7th, 2024 meeting in the Knoxville News Sentinel on Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. Are there any questions about those exhibits from the commissioners? Mr. Davis?
I have also provided to all the commissioners, I'd like to introduce those into evidence as both the original voter registrations on every contested signature as well as the current voter registration off of our ECS, Election Commission System computer. I'd like to enter those into evidence. I think there's 18 of them, I believe. 18 of these, I'd like to enter them into evidence as Exhibit J.
Okay, those will be entered as Exhibit J.
And you all have a copy of those.
Any additional questions of Mr. Davis? Okay. Next thing that we will do is to swear in the witnesses. If the witnesses will rise and identify themselves for the record, we'll ask you to come to the podium and give your name, address, and purpose. And then the court reporter will swear you in. Yes.
To be sure that he signed, have Chris.
Oh, button.
Yes, you're recognized. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. What
Yes.
do you want me to do?
If you'll give your name, address, and your purpose here as a witness today.
Well, I'm Stacy Bryan Smith. I'm the reason for this meeting. I'm at 1567 Crenshaw Road, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37920.
Okay. And did we want to swear the witnesses in as a group or individually? Okay. If you'll, Mr. Smith, if you'll step to the side, we'll allow any additional witnesses who plan to speak to also come forward, state their name and address for the record, and then the court reporter will swear you all in at the same time.
Hello, my name is Martin Ammons. I live at 3111 Saratoga Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Ammons. If you'll join Mr. Smith, and then Mr. Davis, as you will probably be called on, if you will state your name and address, that would be helpful.
Chris Davis, Knox County Administrator of Elections, 300 Main Street, room 229.
Okay. And no additional witnesses? All right. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you. Just to make sure, neither the, I guess, candidate or the person filing the petition, neither one of you all brought witnesses to speak before us today?
I guess, come up here before Scott. Just announce who you are.
Mr. Smith, did you bring any affidavits with you today?
Standing here.
So you,
Four of them,
okay.
and he's my affidavit.
So you plan to have them testify rather than providing written affidavits? You would like for them to testify as witnesses?
Yes.
Okay, then let's have them come forward and state their names and addresses for the record too as well. Sir, you're recognized at the podium.
My name's Scotty Wade Smith. I live at 7712 Goddard Road, South Knoxville.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith.
April Smith, 1567 Crenshaw Road.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith.
David Christopher Hawkins. I'm at 1034 Brown Road.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
William Kidd, 2214 Tipton Station Road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kidd. Okay, and Mr. Ammons, no additional witnesses for you. Okay. If the court reporter will now swear in the witnesses. you all raise your right hands, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about which you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay.
Make that note for the record that all witnesses have been sworn.
Okay. All witnesses have been duly sworn in by the court reporter, and if the witnesses will now be seated, we'll now move to an opening statement by the challenger, Mr. Martin Ammons. Mr. Ammons, you will have up to 5 minutes, and so I'll be monitoring the clock on the back of the wall, and we tend to be gracious, but if you'll make a commitment to try to keep it to 5 minutes, that would be appreciated.
Thank you. To the Knox County Election Commission and Administrator Chris Davis, thank you so much for taking the time on this legal challenge to consider the legality of Mr. Smith's candidacy. This hearing shows the seriousness of each election commissioner's responsibility to protect the integrity of our elections and uphold the intent of Tennessee election law. With elections, it is important that we have public bodies whose primary purpose is to uphold the law, regardless of politics or political affiliation. Otherwise, trust in our legal institutions is harmed. This hearing is about the solemn duty to uphold the laws of the state of Tennessee and the oath our public officials take. Tennessee has a very low legal requirement for candidates to get on the ballot, only requiring 25 valid registered voter signatures as defined by Tennessee Code Annotated 2-5-101B. It is known that in gathering signatures, mistakes often happen. Information is incomplete, signatures are improperly signed by others, or voters give incorrect information. This is why it is a norm for candidates to get about twice as many signatures to make sure that they have complete addresses on their petition to successfully get on the ballot. Because Tennessee has a low number of signatures to get on the ballot, it is reasonable that the intent of the law was to have a strict interpretation for valid signatures of registered voters. This includes complete and accurate petition addresses matching voter registration card data. This also means getting signatures from the actual voters who are supporting the nomination of a candidate. Tennessee election law also has reasonable and easy legal requirements for campaign finance disclosure laws with notices and grace periods. This is relevant and important because in addition to Tennessee law not being followed on our extremely low legal petition requirements, Mr. Smith has consistently failed to properly file on time every single campaign finance document, sometimes months late, and still, as of today, has failed to properly file reports and include all donations and expenses for his campaign. TCA 2-1-110D is clear. A candidate for state or local public office who fails to file any statement or report required by this part shall be ineligible to qualify for election to any state or local public office until such statement or report is filed with either the registry or the appropriate county election commission or both. Related to the following the law, Mr. Smith has produced multiple campaign advertisements, banner signs, without the required TCA 2-19-120 paid for information as required by Tennessee law. This is a Class C misdemeanor. Tennessee law also has reasonable and proper expectations that persons do not mislead voters about voting. Even as of today, Mr. Smith has been misleading voters since November 13th, 2023 to vote on the wrong month, November 2024, even after receiving his official ballot petition from the Knox County Election Commission that the county general election was to be conducted on August 1st, 2024. This could be considered an act of voter suppression. TCA 2-19-133A states a person commits an offense who, with intent to deceive or disseminate information that person knows to be incorrect, provides or publishes false or misleading information regarding the qualifications to vote, the requirements to register to vote, whether an individual voter is currently registered to vote or eligible to register to vote, voter registration deadlines or polling dates, times, and locations. This is a Class E felony. While I understand the Knox County Election Commission is not a body to assess civil penalties or criminal penalties, this consistent pattern of disregard for Tennessee law should be considered when weighing the legality of Mr. Smith's candidacy. The Knox County Election Commission has a duty to protect the integrity of our county elections. Tennessee Code Annotated does provide authority to a county election commission to deny the eligibility of a candidate. A candidate consistently disregarding the law is a danger for the integrity of our elections. I don't expect this decision to be made lightly. We would not be here today if a candidate properly filled out their petition and maybe made a mistake or two in running their campaign. I ask today that the Election Commission consider the entirety of Tennessee law, a strict interpretation of the law, and uphold their oath by protecting our election ballot by requiring candidates to follow Tennessee election law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ammons. Next, we'll hear from the candidate, Mr. Stacey Bryan Smith. And Mr. Smith, as you make your way to the podium, I also wanted to acknowledge that we have Mark Goins from the Secretary of State's office participating in this meeting remotely. So he is who you see on the television screens as well.
Hi there.
And Mr. Smith, you also have 5 minutes.
Okay. First of all, we all know what this is about. The submission for all the names, obviously my wife, I wouldn't need to forge her signature, or my brother, my dad, my 4 uncles, 3 cousins, and the 7 elders that I go to church with. So they're all, 4 of those people are here to disregard Mr. Ammons' submissions. My testimony is this, Mr. Andrews, Chris, is your Andrew? Davis, sorry, brother. Spoke with him and his team many times during this procedure. They do a fabulous job. So not only is Mr. Ammons and his team calling me a liar and a cheat, he's telling that their crew is incapable of doing their jobs, which that is that's just I can't believe anyone would do that. So in Romans, which he's supposed to be a brother, says, give honor where honor is due, give respect where respect is due. I give Mr. Davis and his team, they are my testimony, because after 3 or 4 weeks of me turning my signatures, I checked back in with them and they said the signatures were fine. As far as the finance campaign stuff goes, I spent $750 of my own money last October. So when I went and talked to Mr. Davis's team about which forms to fill out, there may have been a disconnect on which forms I needed to fill out and which dates I put on there. So the word that he brought up was very important, which is intent. There's no intent to fool anybody or do whatever he's trying to claim. So, and as far as trying to tell people not to vote, the original cards that I had made up had November the 4th on it. The person that was doing these for me looked up the date and looked up the dates wrong. Since November the 13th, not one thing have I posted or told anybody about that they should be voting in November. It's all been in August. You can go to my Facebook page. You can look everywhere you want to on there. Their biggest problem is that I'm an independent and I know South Knoxville like the back of my hand. I have family in Vestal. I have people in Sevier Heights. I know Johnson University, Woodlawn Christian Church. I live in South Knoxville for 55 years. What they're claiming is because they're scared of who I am and what I know and the people I know. My Democratic candidate that's running for him has been more gracious of a man that I've ever met in my life. And these people are supposed to be people of the Lord. So anyway, my testimony is what Mr. Davis and his crew has done. They checked all the things. And I also have the 4 witnesses here that will tell that they signed everything on themselves. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next, we'll hear a presentation of facts from the challenger, Mr. Ammons.
On May 20th, 10:36 a.m., as provided for in the Knox County Election Commission's adopted timeline for this hearing, I provided evidence by email to Knox County Election Administrator Chris Davis to support the Stacey B. Smith petition challenge letter submitted to the office of the Knox County Election Commission on May 8th, 2024. Also included on May 8th were completed voter registration cards as provided by the Knox County Election Administration in April 2024 for all 33 alleged signers of Mr. Smith's petition, as well as a copy of Mr. Smith's candidate petition. The first of the two main allegations in my challenge letter is that Mr. Smith has disregarded Tennessee election law by having signers who failed to include an address, had incomplete addresses outside of the district, or addresses not on the Knox County voter registration card or any recent Knox County voter database, or both. 14 out of 33 records have one or more deficiencies on the address based on TCA 2-5-101B. TCA 2-5-101B is explicit. The signer of a petition must include the address of the signer's residence as shown on the signer's voter registration card in order for that person's signature to be counted. As for address omissions, the only exception given in TCA 2-5-101B for omitting information is an apartment number. Two relevant principles of statutory interpretation to consider for petition signature addresses: the harmonious reading principle and the general specific principle. The harmonious reading principle means that TCA 2-5-101B is specific in what counts as a valid signature, and that statute should be read in harmony with other statutes on petition signatures. This means a qualified voter petition signature should meet the definition of 2-5-101B. The general specific principle means that if there's a conflict between a more general petition signature statute and a more specific petition signature statute, then that is a conflict of statutes, and the general specific principle applies, which means the more specific statute overrides any vague general statutes. This is important because TCA 2-5-101B makes it clear that Mr. Smith is ineligible just on the basis of having signatures with addresses that do not match the addresses on file with the Knox County Election Commission voter registration card information, addresses with no legal registration attached to the signer, or incomplete addresses. The second allegation is that Mr. Smith disregarded Tennessee law by having signatures that were not actually signed by that person. 13 of the 33 records raised some serious questions about who actually made the signature. In some cases, the petition signature having no resemblance to the entire name. Mr. Smith has made the defense that some of the signers were family and friends. However, there is nothing in this claim to suggest that means the person actually signed the petition. Petition fraud is an issue, and candidates and supporters helping gather signatures have forged signatures in the past. A recent congressional source shared with Administrator Davis on May 20th found over 65 criminal convictions of petition fraud across the United States. A search online can find even more. If someone was to sign for another registered voter, it is reasonable that it would be for a friend or family member as opposed to some random stranger that they never met. Reviewing the petition signatures showed that there were inconsistencies with the signatures on file with the Election Commission. This taken in light of the other failure to follow election laws would make one reasonably wonder whether or not these were legitimate signatures. Also submitted to Administrator Davis on May 20th were 4 campaign finance complaints that have been filed against Mr. Smith by another resident of Knox County Commission District 9 submitted formally on May 7th, 2024 with the Knox County Election Commission and Knox County Attorney General's Office. Knox County District Attorney Office Assistant District Attorney Sean Roberts filed his summary with the Tennessee Registration of Election Finance on May 28, 2024 for their consideration and future potential hearing. This is relevant because they show a consistent pattern of Mr. Smith's disregard for following Tennessee election law that would be consistent with someone not following the law for obtaining valid signatures. Ignoring election law harms the integrity of our elections. Mr. Smith has disregarded every single campaign finance deadline and has shown extreme neglect with regard to Tennessee election law. In at least one case, he was over 4 months late in filing an appointment of treasurer form. In every other instance, he was many weeks late. He would have been even later for his first quarter filing if not for this election complaint file related to that disclosure. These extremely late filings make him eligible for civil penalties equal to thousands of dollars in fines. If Mr. Smith continues to move forward with his candidacy, he will likely be required to pay fines of more than $2,000 from his personal finances, and further voter suppression efforts by informing voters of the wrong election month could result in a felony. Failure to properly file campaign finance disclosure reports or pay election violation imposed fines disqualifies a candidate from even being on the ballot. As of today, Mr. Smith has still not reported donations and expenses for 2 large banners he displayed on John Sevier Highway for many months. A picture of one of those banners was shared with Administrator Davis on May 20th, which does not appear to include the required paid-for information, a violation of 2-19-120, which is punishable by a Class C misdemeanor. Another example of Mr. Smith's failure to follow Tennessee law. 2-10-110D makes candidates ineligible to qualify for the election ballot for failing to file campaign finance information. Related to Mr. Smith's disregard for Tennessee election law is his knowingly suppressing voter turnout by sharing election misinformation by informing voters to vote on the wrong month. This evidence was provided to Administrator Davis on May 20th. This election misinformation was shared on Mr. Smith's personal Facebook page that continues as of today to advertise the wrong election month. And I have a printed copy of the Facebook post time stamped with today's date. This same personal Facebook page is actively being used to promote his campaign, even as of this week, and unfortunately will likely result in perhaps dozens being disenfranchised by a candidate telling them to vote in the supposed November county general election. This is relevant because it again shows a consistent pattern of disregarding Tennessee election law. I urge the Election Commission to take this seriously, as someone who has a consistent pattern of violating election law should not be allowed on the ballot in order to protect the integrity of our elections. Mr. Smith announced he was running for President of the United States in January 2023, as can be seen by the video link and attached clip that was shared with Administrator Davis on May the 20th. Mr. Smith picked up a petition to run for County Commission in October 2023. It says on the Knox County petition the general election is August 1st, 2024. On November 13th, 2023, Mr. Smith requested on social media that people vote for him on November 5th, 2024 for County Commission. A reasonable explanation could be that Mr. Smith intends to engage in a campaign of misinformation to convince District 9 voters that the county general election is November 5th, 2024, thus potentially suppressing voter turnout. On May 24, 2024, Mr. Smith acknowledged to Administrator Davis receiving notice that his Stacey Bryan Smith Facebook account is informing voters of the wrong election month, but still, as of today, this Facebook post is still there, no correction having been made. A live post can be searched online by any voter. On May 23rd, I shared 2 news stories with Administrator Davis about a 2016 case where someone was convicted for intentionally misleading voters about the process of voter participation, which may have suppressed voter turnout. Voter suppression by disinformation is a serious issue. It's considered a Class E felony in Tennessee and is relevant to this challenge because it is further evidence of Mr. Smith's consistent disregard for election law. As we cannot predict what future voter suppression methods Mr. Smith may use for this upcoming election, we can only use his past behavior of consistently disregarding Tennessee election law and telling voters to vote on the wrong month to reasonably predict that it would be a responsible course of action in light of all his other disregards for Tennessee law and his deficient candidate petition to disqualify the candidacy of Mr. Smith to stop further election misinformation. And finally, I'd like to say this in rebuttal to what Mr. Smith said. I have the highest regard for the work that Administrator Davis and the Election Commission does here in Knox County. I can say from looking at things that have gone on around the nation, we are very well versed in how to maintain election integrity here in Knox County. And finally, just to say this, there's been an attempt by people to mischaracterize this challenge to Mr. Smith's petition as some sort of a partisan attack. This is all about election integrity. And while most people think of election integrity in terms of drop boxes or mailing out ballots to all the people on the voter rolls, ballot access is also part of election integrity. And so, as I've said before, we have a low standard of signatures, so we have to really take this seriously, and particularly to apply the law as it's written. And so all that we're doing today is asking you to apply the law, follow the law. 2-5-101B plainly states that the signatures have to match those on file with the Election Commission, or the addresses have to match those on file with the Election Commission. And quite a few of Mr. Smith's signatures, the addresses, when there are addresses, do not match those records. So thank you for your time.
Okay. We'll now have questions from commission members for you, Mr. Ammons. So Commissioner Bowman, you're recognized.
Mr. Evans, I appreciate your presentation. You seem to be relying on 2-5-101 for this issue regarding the addresses, and I do agree with your statement about specific statutes being more controlling than general. Have you read 2-1-107 paren A as it pertains to addresses on qualifying petitions?
I have read that. I probably don't know it as well as you.
Well, just for the record, it says, provided that if the address shown on the petition is within the precinct in which the person is registered, but is not the address shown on the registration card, the signature shall be valid and shall be counted, does it not?
So this issue about 2-1-107, alleged petition signers do not qualify as follows based on, and I can go through each of these ones that we've challenged. These folks are not in the correct precincts. Let me go through a few of these.
Which ones are not within the precincts? Because I believe Mr. Davis is going to testify about that issue, and I want to make certain that you're giving accurate testimony.
Let me give a couple of examples. In Field 4, Ben Parker, the address provided on the petition is in Precinct 90, and the address provided on the voter registration card is in Precinct 26. In addition, no zip code is provided, and no recent voter registration history at the address is provided on the petition. Field 6, Jonathan Tibbins.
Excuse me, Mr. Ammons, just 1 second. Mr. Davis, did you have a comment about that?
No, I would.
Okay.
I've got a response.
Okay.
I was about to say, can we do these one at a time because your question there is, they didn't actually verify that signature. So that's a non-verified signature on the petition, so it was not actually used to count for the 25.
Yeah, we're only focusing on the 25, or actually I think it's 27 approved signatures. We didn't approve all signatures on this petition.
Right.
Essentially, I think he turned in more than enough in the event that something like this happened.
Right. It appears to me that you challenged addresses for signer 7, 8, 9, 12, 18, 24, 27, 32. So those are the ones when you're dealing with address issues that I'd like for you to tell me if any of those are in violation of 2-1-107.
Let me look here. You'll have to excuse me, this print's kind of small and I really need bifocals. So another one that we can discuss that is not one of the ones that you've mentioned that have already been disqualified, I think is in Field 12, Jeremy McLeod. The address provided on the petition is in Precinct 92, and the address provided on the voter registration card is in Precinct 89.
Is 92 in the county commission district for this office?
Well, I think it is, but if you take the statute that I talked about before, and we talk about this general specific issue of the statutes, and the statutes that are more specific are the ones that should be controlling in this case, then that means that the addresses have to match what is on file with the voter registration or in the Election Commission office. And so a lot of these that we're discussing, a lot of these records have addresses on the petition which do not match the addresses that are on file with the Election Commission or with the information that was provided to me on an information request from the Election Commission office.
Well, if the address is within the commission district and a precinct within the commission district, how does that not qualify as a valid address under 2-1-107?
Well, it does under 2-1-107, but the
Okay.
argument that we're making is that under 2-5-101B, which is the more specific statute on petition signatures, that the petition signature has to match what's on file with the Election Commission office.
I would believe that 2-1-107 is the more specific statute. I have no further. I actually do have just a few more other questions. Mr. Ammons, do you have any evidence from a handwriting expert regarding whether or not any of the signatures for signers 1, 8, 9, 12, 18, 21, 22, 24, 27, 30, or 32 are not valid?
No, I don't have anything from a handwriting expert.
The issue about the reports that you're raising under 210-110, are you contending that Mr. Smith has not filed any statements or reports with the commission, or that they were just untimely?
That they were untimely.
Okay,
In
but
fact,
they have
in
been
some
filed.
cases, very untimely.
But they have been filed.
Yes.
Would you agree with me that the penalty of not being qualified applies if you fail to file a statement? It didn't say anything about timeliness, does it?
That I'll have to go back and look.
I have it in front of me.
Oh, okay.
It says, a candidate for state or local office who fails to file any statement or report required by this part shall be ineligible. Doesn't say anything about timeliness, does it?
Okay. No, I guess it does not.
And regarding the Facebook post that you mentioned, do you have a copy of it such that we can attach it as an exhibit for our record?
Mr. Ammons, if you'll provide that to the court reporter, I think we're now on Exhibit L. K.
Okay.
Can I be recognized?
I
Yes.
have a question for you, just 1 second, and then I'll
Yes, sir.
I'll yield back whatever time I have left. Thank you, Mr. Ammons. If you could hand that to the court reporter. Just a copy for everyone, or is just, okay. My last question will be for Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, have you verified the addresses for signers 7, 8, 9, 12, 18, 24, 27, 32 all live within the precinct for their address listed, and that address is within the county commission district for this seat?
Yes, we have for, and you rattled those off pretty fast, Commissioner. So let me-
7, 8, 9, 12, 18, 24, 27, 32.
18, 24, 27, and 32, yes. And let me just say for
For the record, they all are within the county commission district.
Yes, they
And these
are.
are precincts
Yes.
within that district.
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
But, okay, well,
Any additional questions of Mr. Ammons?
Well, Madam Chair, I've got a question. Again, this is to our election administrator. So I've got here the original voter registration card, which does have a different address, but then we have the updated one that came out. I'm assuming this is probably from an address update that actually has the same address as the one listed on the petition.
that is correct. But with that said, I just want to be clear that, and I believe it was April 7th, I won't swear to it, the date of a public records request, Mr. Ammons asked for copies of the voter registrations with the signatures. We provided those to him a little bit later. I don't know if it's April 7th or a little bit later. I'll apologize on not knowing the exact date, but within a week or so, give or take. Less than 10 days. Quite often what you have, and I'm sure you know this, is we keep copies of the original voter registration. And as you well know, sometimes you do this when you're 18 years old. And that's the one that stays in the file until you're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. People change addresses. About 2.5% to 3% of all people change an address during any given election. What we have in our computerized system, which I gave to all of you, because I would like to think we certainly followed the letter of the public record request, if not the spirit. He wanted the signatures. These are the computer printouts of the most recent address of all of the individuals. You just rattled off some numbers, but 7, 8, 9, 12, and all of those, et cetera, et cetera. They are all, I think with one exception, they are all the correct addresses. And even if it is not the correct address, as you well noted, 21107, I believe it was, those do not have to be, as long as they're in the same district and the same precinct, then they are good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Other questions of Mr. Ammons at this time? Yes, Mr. Davis, you're recognized.
I realize I'm way late to the game on this, but in one of the exhibits, Mr. Ammons was gracious enough to submit 8 exhibits. One of those was a video. I had no way to enter the video into evidence, but I did send it to all of you for viewing. This would have been back on May the 20th, I believe it was, something like that.
That's correct.
And so I did at least forward that to all of you. I just don't have it present with us today.
Mr. Amos, what is that video of, if you can refresh our?
That's the
For the
video
record.
where Mr. Smith declared his candidacy for President of the United States.
Okay. Let's make that as a late filed exhibit for purposes of establishing the record. That would be Exhibit L. Okay. We'll just download it to a thumb drive and get it to Ms. Patterson.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ammons. I don't think we have any additional questions for you at this time. We appreciate your presentation. Mr. Smith will now hear the presentation of your facts, if you'll come to the podium.
Thank you. I really don't have anything to tell you. The November the 5th thing on Facebook, like I said, it was done by someone else who was looking up those dates for me and put that, and we posted it. I didn't delete it because I didn't want it to look like I was trying to hide anything here recently. I'd forgotten it was even on there, to be honest with you, because it was November the 13th. I haven't shared it. I haven't told another soul about November the 5th or anything like that. As far as me running for president, I was going to do a submission to see what it would take to run for president, but then I thought, well, I'll start out as anyone should. You start at the lowest part as a commissioner, as an independent. It was nothing, any grand plan or anything. We just had to get together, and I was going to run for something, so it ended up being commissioner. I submitted no paperwork for president. So that's what that was about. And if you have any questions,
May I be recognized?
Mr. Smith, I'm sorry, Commissioner Gautreaux.
Go
you're
ahead, go ahead.
recognized.
And if you have a question for Mr. Smith.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to ask if the witnesses who are present today are prepared to give testimony as to whether they are the signatories on the petition to clear up that controversial aspect of the complaint.
Yeah,
That's what I was going to ask as well. If they are prepared to testify, this would be the time, I think, to bring them forward.
Well, I'd like to put it on the record that he's saying that I'm signing signatures for other people or whatever. Why would I have to change a signature for my wife, my brother, and people that I'm friends with? This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Are you that scared of losing votes?
Mr. Smith, just for the record, I don't think anybody's making any accusations of you. I think there's been challenges made to signatures and addresses and certain things under the law. I wouldn't take this as a personal affront. Obviously, you're a candidate, and you probably have a lot of good things and bad things said about you, but I don't think there's been any accusation that you forged or have had someone forge signatures on
No,
the
he said that
petitions.
earlier. He said the signatures didn't match, and it looked like someone signed them. And sometimes, just because it's a friendly family person, that doesn't mean that someone didn't sign it. No, he said that out of his own mouth. So it's a slanderous accusation. But I got my brother and my wife and David and William. If you could come up here, it's one of the ones you guys called off.
So if they're the witnesses that were sworn in earlier.
Yes.
We'd like for them to come forward and, I
My
guess what-
dad's 86 years old. He couldn't be here, or I would have had him down here as well.
I'm David
Mr.
Hawkins.
Hawkins, right? Mhm.
Yeah. And so I would just like to testify that I signed my name and filled out the form with the intent to have Brian run as a candidate to represent us in South Knoxville as county commissioner. So I didn't, no one else signed my name, and I don't know what else.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Thanks for.
Sir, do you live in District 9, County Commission District 9?
Yes.
Okay.
Just for the record, that was signature number 9, signature number 9.
I'm Scotty Smith, and I did sign the papers for my brother. He didn't have to forge any names for me. As far as I know, everything was legit. There was a lot of family members that signed these papers, and something was said about not having enough signatures. Well, I'd said at one point, I could probably get 200 signatures if that's what he needed, but he didn't need that. He only wanted enough to get on the ballot. That's why there was such few names. So if we needed 200, we'd have got 200.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. It looks like, Mr. Davis, if I'm looking at this accurately, that Mr. Smith is number 33. Are you 7712 Goddard Road?
Yes.
Okay.
35, no, excuse me, 33.
Okay. And Mrs. Smith?
Yes, April Smith, and I did sign the form for my husband, and I live in District 9.
Signatory number 22, I believe.
I'm William Kidd. I don't really know what number, but I signed on a Sunday morning and happy to do it, and I would have signed any other time. And I think there could be another family member. We could have come up with that in one Sunday morning that live in the district. So, and I am and do live in District 9.
Okay. Before you all are seated, do any of the commissioners have questions for these witnesses right now? Okay. Thank you all for being here. You may be seated. Mr. Smith, you can continue with your remarks.
To be honest with you, I love South Knoxville enough that I know about splitting votes. I know what it takes about when you run as an independent, you split the votes with the Republican Party. This is why I'm running, because I won't be associated with either side for this very reason. I guarantee you, if you asked him, he would be saying that Donald Trump's going through the same thing from the Democrat Party, made up lies, going through the court system. The Sanhedrin is what I call it, because it's a corrupt system. I guarantee you, if you ask him, that's what he would tell you, that Donald Trump's getting screwed over. It's the same hypocrisy that they're doing right now that he's doing. That's what's wrong with it's what's wrong with our government right now. We have R's and D's battling each other out, not for the independent people, the average person. We are a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. This isn't mob rules. So everybody that I talk to, when I talk about environmental stuff and our government stuff, when I meet people, this is what I talk to them about. I've wanted to kind of bow out several times, but they keep telling me, no, we need to hear this. The people need to hear this. This is what this is about. The two banners that he's talking about, I spent my own money on them, $750. I bought three banners and a box load of cards. I've passed out more box loads of cards ever since they brought this up, because I was going to lay low. I love South Knoxville enough that I wasn't going to split the vote, okay? That's what this is about. That's not going to happen now. As soon as you guys make your vote, whether you move me from the ballot or not, I'm going to be everywhere they are, because I'm going to tell you this. There's a fox in the in-house of District 9. That's what that is. He's claiming that he's going to be able to stop what the invasion is. He's not going to be able to. So when I go behind him and meet people and tell them that's not going to happen, he's not going to be able to do anything. This train's rolling. It comes from the mayor office down, both parties. So that's what this is really about, is about votes and me splitting the votes and them losing their power, them losing their place. So you guys, if you have any other questions for me, I'd love to answer it. But that's really what this is about.
I do have a question for you, Mr. Smith, and then my colleagues may have some additional questions for you. Thank you for bringing the witnesses that you were able to tonight, and we certainly recognize that on a Friday evening it's difficult to get everyone here. So I'll just ask you, while you're under oath,
well, the UT Sports was here as well, so they weren't coming over as well.
Yes.
So what are you going to do?
And I can tell you that there's a very competitive T-ball game right now happening at Christenberry Park.
Yeah.
So that may also be competing with our attendance. But did you or did you not have each individual signer of this petition personally sign the paper?
100%.
you're telling us under oath that none of the signatures on this were signed by anyone else than the name that's on this?
I would not, and there would be no reason to. Like my brother said, if we needed 500, we'd have got 500. If we needed 1,000, we'd have got 1,000. That's what they're scared of. And I'll tell you this, I would rather sat with Mr. Parks and have a meal as this man any day of the week.
Other questions for Mr. Smith right now? Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
And not so much a question, just to kind of clean up the air. What's before us tonight is only a challenge to signatures and addresses. So some of the other things that were brought up, not before this body, if you've got reports due, that is, I believe, under the purview of the Bureau of Ethics of Campaign Finance, I would recommend you get those in. Anything else would fall under the Attorney General having to look at, if there were some fraud things happening. What's before us is only the nominating petition and the signatures. Are they valid or are they not? So I just want to make sure the general public understands our only job here tonight is what the petition that was originally filed, which is around signatures on the signature petition. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
And everything has been amended. What happened the first time was when I was explaining to one of Mrs. Davis's members, was he was thinking that I was wanting to give myself a loan, and so you have to sign a different paper on that. And then when they told me the dates that I put down was not the correct date. That was amended. Again, it was a paperwork issue. It wasn't intent of anything. I'm not hiding anything. They've got over $6,000, $7,000 to spend on the Republican side. The Democrats have $12,000. I spent $750 of my own money. I'm not hiding anything. There's no one gave me a dime. Zero. So that's what we're here. I did all of this on my own. I have no help, no big volunteers or nothing, because I'm myself. I go out and I speak to people and I tell them the truth, and I give them a smile and a good time to laugh and joy and let them know there's a better way to govern than either one of these sides are doing. Nothing personal to anyone. But what's going on here is an absolute scapegoat job, because they're going to try to blame me for why the Republicans lost, and it's actually because of their own actions. So.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Other questions for him at this time?
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Ammons, you'll now be recognized for a closing statement, and you have up to 5 minutes for that.
On May 16th, Knox County Election Administrator Chris Davis provided Mr. Smith an affidavit to allow him the opportunity to have all 13 challenges to the actual petition signatures take an oath that their signatures true. As of today, 22 days later, only 4 of those 13 signature challenges either presented themselves today or provided affidavits. On May 17, 2024, it was reported in Compass Knox that Mr. Smith said that he personally knows all 18 of the people in question and is related to several of them and can verify that they are who they said they were on the petition. Literally, my wife is one, Smith said, my dad, my brother, my 2 uncles, 4 cousins, and my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, my father-in-law, and 7 people I go to church with, and 2 of the men are preachers. Based on the close relationship he is claiming to have with these individuals and his stated intent to verify in the article, over a period of 3 weeks, it is reasonable to think Mr. Smith would have obtained 13 affidavits for all or almost all the individuals in question. This is not an unprecedented request. News Channel 5 in Nashville reported on May 2nd, 2024, that in response to State Representative Justin Jones having 10 signatures challenged on his petition, Jones provided 10 notarized affidavits from the signature holders in question. The affidavit writers indicated they were who they said they were, and they did indeed sign Jones' petition to run for office again. Yet all signatures challenged were not affirmed by sworn oath today or by affidavit from Mr. Smith. To the credit of State Representative Jones, he used the legal process to affirm his signatures. We are here today to look at the evidence and a lack of defense by Mr. Smith and say those signatures do not match. Although I don't have a handwriting professional to say that, there are some things which are inconsistent, and in light of the other problems with Mr. Smith's candidacy and his following of election law, it is reasonable to assume that because of the differences, this could be because those people did not actually sign those signatures. Despite any affidavits or witnesses affirming their signature, TCA 2-5-101B is clear about the criteria for addresses, and if an address was written wrong, incomplete, non-existent, out of the district, or not in the same precinct, then despite that affidavit or witness, their signature is not valid. For all the reasons mentioned above and based on the evidence submitted on May 8, 2024, included in the emails to Administrator Davis on May 20th and 23rd, and presented today, I humbly ask the Knox County Election Commission to support Tennessee law and the integrity of our elections by disqualifying the candidacy of Mr. Smith from the August Knox County general election ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ammons. We'll now hear a closing statement from the candidate, Mr. Stacey Bryan Smith. And Mr. Smith, you also have up to 5 minutes.
In this country, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. I had nothing to prove. I had nothing to show anybody. I had the people from Mr. Davis's crew. They told me in December, sometime in December after the submission dates, that all were fine, all were clear, all were good. So what was my point of going around and getting 18 people to run around, find notaries, and do all of that type of stuff when I know for a fact they did it? If I would have ran around and got all of their affidavits and signed up, that would look like I'm trying to prove something. I had nothing to prove. He has everything to prove. And again, he didn't check the signatures. He didn't ask Mr. Davis. He asked for the originals, not the current, the updated signatures and the updated addresses. There's nothing to prove. I didn't have anybody sign anything other than they wanted to do it themselves, and I didn't forge anything and have anybody change addresses. Again, we know what this is for and what this is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We'll now move into a time of discussion by the commission members. Any commission members have questions of Mr. Davis as we enter into this discussion time? Commissioner Smith?
Just one quick question, just because I've noticed it and just wanted to ask it on the record. Administrator Davis, I noticed at the very top of the petition, actually the pre-filled out computer stuff is actually marked out and it's actually handwritten because it's actually got the wrong date printed on the petition that
The original candidate petition.
the original candidate petition. Who is TS, just for?
TS is Tammy Sandage in my office.
All right, I just wanted that on the record so that we knew who TS was on there because, again, mistakes happen even for us. So, just didn't want to hide that.
And as a point of clarification, when we do these petitions, it gets quite busy in the office sometimes. We just automatically grab a petition, and then when an individual says, well, maybe I'll run as a Republican, maybe I'll run as an independent, there's different election dates on that, which is why that was marked out and clarified, if you will, that it would be August 1 instead of March the 5th.
Can you explain the process your staff goes through, Mr. Davis, in verifying petitions on the signature?
Yes, to the best of my ability. Essentially, when we get a signature in, we go to the signature that we have on file, and we verify. We're looking at things like the way the letters strokes, downstrokes. And we not only are able to, by state law, and I know Coordinator Goins is here and can verify this, we're also allowed to look at handwriting and see if there are any familiar characteristics that we can a reasonable person can ascertain that we have, the individual that supposedly signed it.
And is that performed by one staff person?
Typically, yeah, well, it totally depends on how busy we are. Mm-hmm. Sometimes one person does it, sometimes two people do it. As an example, if it gets really busy in here, somebody comes in and submits a petition. Hey, you check these 2 pages, you check these 2 pages. And then they'll come in and you'll see up here where it says, okay, 27 approved signatures and circled, and then TS. She is the only individual who checked this particular petition. But sometimes we'll have 2 or 3 people who will, they do page 1, they do page 2, that type of thing.
How often?
Let me add one last thing. I apologize, Commissioner. If there is a question about a signature, office practice is that we have at least 2 sets of eyes look at it to verify that. And quite often, even I'm drawn in as a third set. Hey, we're kind of iffy about this one a little bit. And this is not an unusual thing to move on from one if we don't feel as though it is the appropriate, the signature that matches. I apologize.
How often are these type of challenges, petition signatures? In your tenure, how many has we?
I've been here a little over 11 years in full-time staff. I think this is the first one of these. We had some other challenges to residency. Most recently, I think Baraka, maybe last summer, so whenever it was.
But signatures,
signatures, no.
It's not been
not here.
Commissioner Bowman?
Mr. Davis, just to clarify for the record, the voters who signed in fields 7, 8, 9, 12, 18, 24, 27, 32, your office has verified that their addresses are compliant with 21107, TCA 21107.
Yes, they are. I think it is good for me to point out at this particular time in our double-check review of this, because we wanted to prepare for this, we determined that, this is the one caveat that I will put that I think we made a mistake on. If you look at petition field number 8 of Judith Goddard, there's a Judith Goddard and there's a Judy Goddard. And I've included, I believe in your records, I'm looking at Yolanda, did we included both of those? I can't see around the hair. Yeah, good deal. We counted the wrong Goddard, so that one, in my opinion, should not count. We counted Judith when we should have counted Judy. Judith was, I can't remember which one is, I can look it up real quick just to be very specific with you.
Number 8.
Number 8, thank you. But number 8 is a Judy Goddard who seemingly signed the petition. It certainly looked like her signature based on her voter registration. She was a purged voter, so that one should not count. Judith Goddard, who is a active and registered voter, ironically on the same road, 7622 Goddard Road and 8229 Goddard Road, apparently did not sign the petition. Judy did. I know this gets confusing, but in my mind, the wrong person signed the petition. Don't know what happened. Did we get in a hurry approving it, that type of thing? That's the only one that jumps out at us at all that we got incorrect. And even with that, there would still be 26 in question, I suppose.
So Judy Goddard did have a voter registration card on file. She just happens to be purged.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
But that signature should not count then.
That's correct.
So that takes us-
Let me phrase that, in my opinion, because I don't think that's the individual who signed the petition, in our estimation, in our office, is a purged voter.
Okay. So that would take Mr. Smith down from 27 approved signatures to 26.
That's my opinion. Obviously, you vote on that, but.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And even then, it appears as though there's 2 Judith Goddards in Knox County, and they both live on the same road. We made a mistake. So, other than that, we've double-checked them all. We feel comfortable with the signatures, but nonetheless, that's something you can look at and make decisions on.
Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
And that was one that I had marked, not necessarily the signatures. I can make the argument that J's are close. However, the address on the petition does not match the voter registration file. So therefore, because of the address mismatch, I would have wanted to have disqualified that one. Again, I'm not a handwriting expert, not going to pretend to be, but because it did not match the address for what we had on file, that was one that I was going to challenge and not accept just because of that.
Okay. Any additional comments or discussion? Okay, we'll now move into motions either validating or invalidating each individual signature. And so we will do that one at a time. Beginning with number 1. So the first name that we'll consider is Craig Hauser. Is there a motion regarding the signature of Craig Hauser and whether or not it should be validated or invalidated? Motion to approve. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that it's valid. I'll second that it's valid.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion about the signature of Craig Hauser? All those in favor of accepting that signature as valid, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the signature of Carol Hauser.
She was not challenged, just
She
for the
was
record.
not challenged.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next go to 8, which we're going to move to disqualify for being a purged voter.
I see.
For signer number 8, Judy Goddard, I would move that we find that to be an invalid, an unlawful, an invalid signature because the voter's been purged.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor of invalidating the signature of Judy Goddard, number 8, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Next is number 9, the signature of David C. Hawkins. Is there a motion regarding the validation or invalidation of that signature?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion we accept on condition that the person was here and gave testimony that he did sign that. So I would move that we accept that signature.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor of accepting the signature of David C. Hawkins, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. 12, is that right? I believe that is Jeremiah McLeod. Is there a motion regarding the acceptance, validation, or invalidation of the signature of Jeremiah McLeod?
Move to validate.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
Those were motions to validate.
Yes, Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Just to be clear, that's number 12.
Yes. Next is
Number 18.
18, Cindy Woodward. Is there a motion regarding the signature of Cindy Woodward?
Motion to validate.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to validate the signature of Cindy Woodward. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the signature of Robert Smeltzer, which is number 21. Is there a motion regarding the validation or invalidation of the signature of Robert Smeltzer?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept that signature.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 24?
22.
22. April Smith, is there a motion regarding the signature of April Smith?
I move we validate her signature.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Now which number?
24.
Okay. Next is the consideration of the signature of Richard W. Smeltzer. We did Robert Smeltzer, and so now we're considering Richard W. Smeltzer.
Move to validate.
We have a motion to validate his signature. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And
27.
finally, the signature of William A. Kidd.
We move to validate.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to validate the signature of William A. Kidd. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Is that everyone?
There's some more. Oh, there's some more.
30.
30 and 32.
Okay. My apologies, we have two more. The next one is consideration of the signature of R. Paul Beam. Is there a motion regarding the signature of R. Paul Beam?
Motion to accept the signature.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to validate the signature of R. Paul Beam. Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And finally, the signature of David Kennard. Sincere apologies for the botched pronunciation of some of the names.
I move we validate Mr. Kennard's signature.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next, we will, now that the signatures themselves have been validated, we will entertain a motion either for or against Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith's qualification as a candidate to be placed on the ballot.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that Mr. Stacy Bryan Smith be allowed to proceed as a candidate for the office he has qualified for pursuant to the signatures on his petition.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Okay, and I will do a roll call vote for this. So we'll just start with you, Commissioner Thomas,
Aye.
and Commissioner Gotro,
Aye.
Commissioner Bowman.
I am deeply troubled by the fact that we have a candidate for an office of the Knox County Commission who's going to be responsible for tax dollars, raising taxes and budget items, and has neglected to properly handle campaign finance disclosure documents. I sincerely hope that if Mr. Smith is found to be qualified, he'll be a little more diligent in handling his financial affairs and cooperating with his office and filing financial statements and doing what's required of him by state law. Although I'm deeply troubled about that, I will vote aye.
Okay, Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
And the chair also votes aye. Next order of business is that we need to set a time for the approval of the minutes of this meeting. Mr. Davis, when does that need to be done?
Well, my thought would be, and perhaps Coordinator Goins might want to chime in here, I would think we have a commission meeting next Thursday. I believe it'll be in this room. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, it will be in this room. I'm assuming we could probably have them done by then, but, yeah. Oh, I see. I mean, we've already got meetings.
So with that, then I guess, Madam Chair, I would just make a motion that we set the time for approval of the minutes to be our next regularly scheduled commission meeting of Thursday, June 13th at 8:30 a.m. here in the small assembly room.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make certain that the court reporter's card's part of the record.
Oh, yes.
Is that Exhibit L?
We have a late filed, and then it would be M.
Yes. So we will establish the court reporter's card as Exhibit M for the record. Thank you for being here today.
Now I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.